Oh goodness! Hi everybody. I'm being quite amused today. Uh, we have a really good and fun podcast for you today. That's also going to make you question reality. Not really. Okay.
Kelly,
I always question reality.
My goodness, I've
Kelly's going to pull himself together.
and actually it's yeah. Can you help me do that, Anna? Since it was you that made me laugh the hardest here this last time. We've been attempting to record this for the past I don't know 20 minutes or so, and have had some challenges, but having some fun along the way too. So
Well, we're here with Dr. John Tuck to speak about his
mhm,
book today. So why don't you
mhm.
start there? Come on, bring in the professionalism.
Yes. So I'm reading from the back of his wonderful book, which is a self development book for everyone. And it's called A Theory of Everything Things I Wish I'd Known at Your Age. And the thing I love about this book is he has dedicated this book to his two sons, and he's giving the most wonderful advice that a father could give any child and of any age. And it reads in such a way that you just feel the connection, the heart connection. So I really want to introduce John with the couple of paragraphs, with the first two paragraphs in the back of his book here, and then we can get on to speaking about his book and a theory of everything. So Dr. Jonathan R. Tuck is a holistic energy scientist who completed his doctorate at the University of Oxford in 2001. He's worked in the energy industry for most of his career, and in his spare time is a Reiki master teacher and gives workshops explaining the science behind energy healing. A Theory of Everything, Things I Wish I'd Known at Your Age, is a self development book which, with brutal honesty, describes the challenges faced by the author during his life, the research and steps he's taken to address them, and the conclusion he's come to. Conclusions. This includes a simple method for removing negative thoughts or emotions, which provide clarity of thought for improved relationships, better decisions, and actions, and for the reduction of daily stress and anxieties. So, yes, thank you for being here with us, John, and I hope that all is well where you are.
Yeah, absolutely. Thank you, Kelly. It's an absolute pleasure, and thank you so much for providing me with this opportunity to be with such a great bunch of people. I mean, I've spent um, a few sessions with you guys, and it's just an absolute joy to be with you. So thank you.
Oh, you are welcome.
Yeah,
I'm always
great.
a joy.
John, I want to know, I'm going to jump in here and be selfish, but I want to know what inspired you to write the book.
Yeah, thank you. It was, I mean, other than sort of 30 years of research, it was inspired primarily when I attended a so-called ADHD workshop with my for my youngest son with his mother. The the tutor herself was absolutely fantastic and very awake and very much aware of the sort of the honest situation. And one of the primary goals for her was really focusing the attention on looking at the attitude, behavior, and belief structure of the parents rather than the children, which I found absolutely fascinating. And it set me on fire. I couldn't stop interjecting. And what I found quite ingratiating was that she tended to agree with everything I said. However, about halfway through the second day, she said, "John, you're going to have to shut up now." Um, but she followed with, "But I want you to write a book." And fortunately, I was I was in the middle of a sabbatical, at the time, and I had time to do it. And I wrote the first draft in 3 months. And I sent it to her because, I had no formal education in human psychology, and I wanted to make sure I wasn't talking bollocks, to be fair. So and what she came back with was just incredible. She said that if every parent in the world read this book, the world would be a better place. And I was blown away. I mean, it's the first time I'd really had any feedback on whether what I'd learned from first principles, from observing human psychology since about the age of 14, that actually told me that I was onto something. And yeah, so the main excuse me, the main reason I wrote the book for my boys was because I remember an episode whereby when my youngest son was probably sort of between the age of 1 or 3, I I was in a I've no excuses. I behaved very badly, but I was in a pretty dark place. And I remember I shouted at him for whatever reason, and I remember thinking almost seconds after I shouldn't have done that. And I was learning about the effects of verbal violence at the time, and I figured, well, if nothing else, I can't go back and change the past, but what I can do is I can make better for the future. So those were the two primary driving forces behind writing the book.
You know, I actually have the same policy in my house. I uh, absolutely banished shouting of any kind or calling names or raising your voice at kids because one, you're teaching them to do it when they're older, when they're in conflict, and two, it is verbally abusive. So I agree.
Absolutely, but even behind that, what you're doing is you're putting in negative trauma into
Yep.
their subconscious. So that was one of the things that fascinated me most was how to remove that or the negative association with the memory of that trauma.
Yep. I grew up in a very shouty household and I hated it so much. And all I tell my children now is, you don't want any shouting in this house. It was just awful, awful to live that way.
Yeah.
Constant sitting on edge, and it's really affected me now I'm older. So there's no shouting in my household for any reason.
It's shattering. It's what it did for me. That's the best way to explain it. It just shatters your soul in such a way that you're not able to focus and to feel whole. There's always something that you're afraid is going to happen too with others as well.
I had, oh, sorry, Kelly. I had a similar experience growing up as well with yelling and hitting. And it just makes you try to fly under the radar. And I'm still a powerful personality. So I did what I wanted to do anyway when I decided that the punishment would be worth it. But that was the start of my awakening to become a decent person and to try to be kind, and got me into the careers and the awakening that, to the extent I'm aware, that I now have. So I agree with all said.
I think, Liz, I think that I personally believe that we have had to go through these experiences in order to become who we are.
Exactly.
I think if we hadn't have made the mistakes, then we wouldn't be growing. And I think it's simply the ability to reflect and observe on your behavior and want to, as you said, become a better person. And that's been my goal too.
Exactly. So then, John, what I would say next is, given your book, what's your favorite part of your book?
Oh, thank you. Yeah, my favorite part is chapter 6, which is my ultimate learnings, I've called it. And chapter 6 describes the mental energy techniques that I collected and put together in one place, which enable people to remove the negative association with the memories surrounding trauma. And for me, it was, as I said, I've made reference to all of the material that I've used in that, and I haven't really invented anything new. I've just developed a technique, ultimately, which uses a sort of guided meditation or visualization to begin to remove negative trauma or the memory of negative trauma. I use it extensively with my life coach clients and various other outlets, and I found it to be extremely valuable, extremely powerful. It's kind of something I came across whilst going through my spiritual evolution and various meditation groups, particularly my affiliation with the Marlborough School of Reiki and what was the Marlborough Wellbeing Clinic, and taken ideas from various sources and just built upon them. So yeah, I think if there is anything in my book that I really want to give to people, that's it.
I love that.
I have a quick question about that actually. In all the things you've read and learnt and done, what kind of because we all know that you can get sick from stress and trauma, like old trauma that you don't even think you have or know you have. How do people recognize that they've got trauma that they haven't healed or that they don't know that they have in them?
That's
What
a
kind
really
of
good.
symptoms do you think that they would have?
That's a really good question. I think fundamentally you can gauge whether a memory is negative or positive simply by the way it makes you feel. And I believe it really is as simple as that. If you have a thought or something or a trigger that causes you to feel in a negative way, then you know you've got something that you need to deal with, something that's a negative, redundant memory that no longer serves you. And yeah, I genuinely believe it is actually as simple as that. So, if you're just sitting minding your own business and something pops up on your screen or something and it makes you feel bad, then you can be sure that it's triggered a negative memory that you can simply remove. It no longer serves you.
Mm, very true. Very simple.
Yes, exactly. He's got so many simple processes and within the book, and I really like how mental health is at the forefront, and it's something that you're passionate about as well, because I think we all can agree that if we get the mental health right in our countries, that we're going to be much better off as a society, and, as a whole. And but I just want to say here, like what he highlights in the book with simple process for managing emotions is acknowledging, accepting, and allowing. And that's been key for me in my journey, mental health, and dealing with family members who aren't well, um, mentally or spiritually. And so, yeah, I think that's great. We have to get to that point of, acknowledging what's going on with it, accepting it, and then allowing. So, um,
That is a huge subject, though. I mean, look at
Huge.
I know nothing against humanity, but everybody seems, well, it's not their fault, but everybody is in denial. Everybody, it seems.
Pretty much.
If you, well, there are a few of us that have woken up a little bit, but even I find things that I've been ignoring, and I'm
mhm.
like, oh, I really should just take care of that instead of ignorance is bliss. So we have to try and figure out a way to help the general masses of people who don't even know where to begin or that there's anything wrong because they will ignore even the smallest of problems with everything.
I agree. And in my own work with clients, we talk about triggers, and I talk about taking every thought captive as you're able. You begin to do that and turn it around and do that healing like we're talking about. But Jonathan, Can you share quickly one of your processes, like some of the elements in one of your meditations or something like that? I'd love to know.
Yeah, sure. I mean, particularly talking about chapter 6 and the very simple methods which I've described in there. I mean, for example, I've taken a notion from Joe Vitale, which is the what if up principle. And I love it. It's just amazing. It's how to retrain your thought process.
Oh, that's
Um,
like CBD, not CBD, CBT.
um, similar, but this I think is a lot more simple. It's a simple mind technique whereby, for example, if you're thinking the day before an event, oh, what if it rains tomorrow? What if, it's miserable? Instead of thinking that, so when you capture yourself, and again, it'll make you feel bad. So you'll be able to recognize it immediately. Instead of thinking that, why not think, well, what if it's a beautiful day tomorrow? Or even better, what if, even if it rains and it's windy, we have a fantastic time anyway, you know?
Mm-hmm.
And
Yeah.
I found that if you use a combination of the techniques that I described there, I mean, just trying to think off the top of my head what some of the others are. Um, uh,
Well, speaking on the negative one, that is, we've been all trained since birth to be negative about everything, and we've also been trained to be negative against humans. So it's a very common phrase to say, "I hate people. I don't like
yeah,
going outside. I hate
yeah,
people."
yeah,
So,
yeah. So exactly. So change that dialogue in your head to I love people and I love going outside and I love life, and excuse me. The more you
Kelly
say
is loving life.
the more you say that to yourself, the more it penetrates deep into your subconscious and it becomes your automatic response. And along the lines of what you just said, as you know, we're also fed negative information and negative fear, depression, repression, all of that through mainstream media, and we've had it for most of our lives. Fortunately,
Oh,
I
I think
stopped.
it's gone beyond mainstream media. It's in schools, it's at home, it's
Yeah,
everywhere.
yeah, yeah.
Corporations, logos, subliminals.
Yeah, they've been very successful, but
Like I would say we've all been mind controlled to an extent.
oh, absolutely, yes. The good
Yes,
news is
well,
it appears to be coming to an end now, so
Mm-hmm.
that's a really positive position to be in, and I'm
oh yeah, they
absolutely
lost.
very, very excited.
I am
Well,
too. And
uh,
energetically,
uh,
things are shifting fast. Go ahead. Mm-hmm.
sorry, no, I was just going to ask because you just mentioned someone a minute ago, just very quickly, if you had any other people that have influenced you in your work or your thinking or your learning, any other names that people could look up and reference?
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, I think some of the most inspiring resources that I've been drawn towards are the likes of um, Napoleon Hill, Think and Grow Rich, which is essentially alluding to law of attraction and how to frame your mindset in terms of being successful. I suppose define successful, but being able to achieve the things of your desires. From a scientific perspective, I've always been a big fan of Nikola Tesla. So I've followed a lot of Nikola Tesla's work. Um, I also drew a lot of resource from Lynn McTaggart's The Field,
Love that
Bruce,
book.
Bruce
Mm-hmm.
Lipton,
Mm-hmm.
Biology of Belief.
Mm-hmm.
Um, I I'd need to. I'm running out of references now, but
Well, you don't need to give them all.
uh,
Just going to
Jerry
ask you if you
Tennant,
had any.
Jerry Tennant, um, uh, Healing is Energy,
Mm-hmm.
and a lot of Joe Dispenza's work. I mean, I think they're the big hitters. But I've made sure that I used every reference to the work that I drew upon in my book in order that if nothing else, my children could do their own research for themselves and come to their own conclusions, because at the end of the day, the truth is what you believe, you know.
No,
So,
absolutely.
I really encourage them and anyone else to do their own research and to come to their own conclusions. Which is why I've been meticulous about the references that I put in the book.
Absolutely.
Well,
I think it's very important with whatever anyone says, any of us here say, anywhere on Chewy or it's up to us to do our own research and see if it resonates with us. Like we're not gospel truth by any means.
that's what I was going to say. Every single thing you hear from anybody, you just take what resonates and leave the rest. But a
Mm-hmm.
lot of people want things to be done for them, but sometimes you have to go out there and do the research.
I
Yeah,
couldn't
it's so
agree more.
sorry, John. Yeah, at some level, all the truth has to come from inside us, doesn't it? Go ahead, Jonathan.
I couldn't agree more with what you said, Anna, about it resonating, and that's how I've kind of navigated the whole sort of last 4 years. Is whether it resonates with me, whether it makes me feel good or not, or whether I can accept it into my conscious. So absolutely
Exactly.
agree with that.
And if everyone just, when you learn something or you hear something, you just take a minute to be quiet and listen to yourself. Yourself will tell you, your higher self will tell you whether this is correct what you're listening to or not. And that's where you have to start getting your confirmation from yourself and
And I
not so
think we
much
can,
other people.
yeah, and I think we can get better at it with practice for sure.
Yeah,
Mm-hmm.
what I've tended to do is have this sort of bigger picture in my mind, which is built up of primarily what I learned 20 years ago, because I trust that information more than what we've been subject to recently. But what it enables me to do is to put things in the yes, this is possibly true, and yes, this is possibly, or no, this is possibly not true, sort of sections of my mind.
Well, Kim has said it quite a few times, but if you wake up every morning with an empty cup, then you will constantly grow. But if you think at the end of the day, my cup is full, I have learned everything I need to know, then you will never grow and you will never learn.
Mm.
Mm-hmm.
You,
Absolutely, yeah.
you know,
The
sorry, John, go
great.
ahead.
So I was just going to say that I heard a long time ago the greatest knowledge you can have is that you will never know everything.
Yes.
Oh, yes. Well, I was going to say, Jonathan, speaking of Kim, I read your annotated notes, and I remember that Kim's recent news report about her long 2 hour one of May 20, I forget, last week, 2 weeks ago.
June 19th.
Thank
Mm-hmm.
you, Kelly.
You're
She
welcome.
talks
God,
about,
you weren't even close, Liz. Oof.
I know. I was thinking of something else. I'm whacked. So, where she's talking about using a feather on her brain whenever she felt the emotions,
Yeah,
the flood of cortisol or adrenaline, she would actually push it up to her brain. She didn't explain all her processes after she talked about stroking her brain with a feather. But I wanted to ask you, do you have anything to add to that? Maybe adding a process to what we can do to become more brilliant or become more physical or healthy or something like that.
yeah, no, really, really poignant. I was really impressed with what she was discussing, and from what I could gather, she was saying that what she was doing was actually transmuting the fear
Mm-hmm.
Yes.
into a positive. And what she was doing, she was identifying the part of her brain that needed the attention and redirecting that adrenaline to that part of the brain and transmuting it into a positive effect. Um, so, I mean, from my perspective, I think that uh, that is a little above what I would have how I would have approached it initially, and what I have most recently, sort of over the last 5 years, put into my work is when you remove a fear or a negative memory, you then connect to the source and replenish with the positive affirmation or positive belief structure that you want to implement in that section of
Mm-hmm.
your brain. So I can kind of relate to it,
Mm-hmm.
and I certainly know that what I've done, particularly for myself, has been extremely effective.
Mm-hmm.
Well, Kelly was talking. I actually was going to ask Kelly because he was
Hmm.
speaking about this earlier. Because we did have a differing opinion. Um, Someone made a comment on one of the threads saying that she doesn't feel that you should be transmuting things or imagining things, using imaginary things. But personally, for me, it helps. But what is it you were saying, Kelly, about
Hmm.
that?
Well, yeah, I feel that transmutation is not only an alchemical experience, but it's metaphysical, and what we want to do energetically speaking, when we're experiencing something that is just completely off with, say somebody is in the background and screaming or whatever, we we have to, if it helps to go through a process, especially if it's tr triggers trauma, which is what it does with me. And so when I hear, fighting or things like that happening, I personally move into um, breathing light into my brain, and probably the amygdala, which is what I was learning about like 25 years ago, that that's where a lot of the fears are stored and such. And if I breathe light into that area and just relax, like Kim says, like she uses a feather, for example, stroking her brain, where I just breathe in ultraviolet transmuting light, and I feel that light is a great transmuter. I've always kind of been flooded with that light anyway since I was a child, so it's always come about to help me transmute, and when I feel just waves of light coming over me, and that shifts too. It's not always ultraviolet, but it always starts out that way. That's what I always has always come to me, and then come to find out as I got older that ultraviolet light is something that can kill bacteria and germs and things that so imagine what it can do for us metaphysically if we use it in that way consciously.
Yeah,
And
you've heard my recent new method of walking around with a permanent uh, fire of violet light ball at the side of my head,
mhm,
and it just
there you go.
I'll get my finger guns out, like, and
There you
I'll suck
go.
out the negative thoughts, and then I'll
It,
shoot them into my fireball.
it
I
can
must
be
look a little
so
bit
Fantastic.
silly.
nutty,
It's
but
great. It's
it
great.
works. It works.
Exactly. The
And
nuttier, the better.
I think on the whole topic of visualization and using symbolism, I know how absolutely powerful it is, and I
Hmm.
use a lot of symbolism and visualization, and I think the one of the keys is color and movement and size. And for example, I'll often use the lotus flower. So if I have any if I'm tense at all in my body, if I visualize a lotus flower or many lotus flowers, I can relax almost immediately, and it's a
Oh yeah, that's a good one.
very tangible experience. And I've only ever had one problem with a client once who said, "Ooh, I can't do that." And I was like, "But it's only a what do you mean you can't? You're not actually growing a lotus flower out of your head. You're just putting it anyway."
Hmm. But if it
Oh,
does, if you visualize that and it's a funny visualization, that's okay too. I just want to share something real quick. When I was taught, I think I was on the edge of 13, how to remote heal. We had the group had a lot of people that did actually need healing, and so their name and their general location of where they were and what they were dealing with was on an index card, and somebody would choose that, and they would just for the partner, and then they would say the name and their location, and then you would do the scan. And the interesting thing, I found somebody that had some lung issues, and and they said, just as silly as it may be, just imagine what it would be to help this person with their lung issues. And what came to me, and this was the first visualization I ever had with remote healing that I can recall, was that I was a fireman with a hose, and I was inside of their lung, just spraying it down so that they could just like get it all cleaned up, and just have that water be a cleanse, from the inside out. And I thought that was just kind of funny
hey,
and sweet
whatever
that
works.
yeah, whatever works, right? And
Yeah,
That's so funny. I get those kind of imagery regularly, and it kind of makes me laugh, which is
Mhm.
um, not necessarily so good in the middle of a healing session if I'm doing it sort of face to face, but
Right.
often it's taken in good humor. But yeah, I mean, absolutely. And yeah, I get. I don't ask for feedback, but I tend to get it on a regular basis. But if someone's to come to me and say I want a reading, I wouldn't know where to begin. It's kind of, I've connected to the source already, and I'm just channeling stuff. You know.
Mhm.
Yeah, exactly. When I'm working with clients, doing a soul retrieval or other kind of soul journeys with them, either on their behalf or sending or guiding them along, the visualizations just come of where to take them, and
Yeah.
what spirit
Yeah.
animals are there and what have you. And to everyone's point, it's like, in a way, there's some good guidance of how to set up our visualizations, but they're so varied, aren't they?
Mhm. Absolutely. Did anybody cut out? Have you guys cut out, or is it just
No,
me?
we're here. We're
No, I
here.
Okay,
did
good.
cut out then. I did.
Okay. I was wondering. It felt like somebody did.
Sorry. Sorry.
No, that's okay.
It's me. Hi, I'm the problem. It's me.
Always.
Uh,
There's
So back to effort.
nothing to do with the fact that I just had to cancel a phone call, but I don't think that's.
oh, okay. That
Uh,
maybe that's what I was picking up on. I don't know. I
you
just
know, I
felt
want
like.
to Oh, sorry, everybody. I want to go back
Yeah.
to affirmations that Jonathan was
Yeah.
talking about earlier. They're really important. I agree. I find that sometimes with people, if they can't go, as I say, full retard, that's from Tropic Thunder. I'm not trying to be non-politically correct, but when they want to, it's sometimes it's hard to go. Like, one of my affirmations is, I am amazing and wonderful. I mean, someone has to say it. I may as well, right? Some people can't go that far. So I'll recommend to them to say something more neutral, like, okay, it's getting better. I'll figure this out. If people can't go all the way to the most amazing affirmation, that can really help. And that also goes into the subconscious and can lead you to getting to realizing that we're small g gods, that realizing that we can move into full awareness and be our full sovereign selves.
That's really interesting, Liz. One of the techniques I use for exactly that is simply holding the affirmation in my mind and feeling the negative that's being brought up that's blocking me, and simply removing it at source until such a point that I feel comfortable in saying the affirmation.
Yeah, I've done that with pendulums too. You can use a
Yeah,
pendulum with a
yeah,
chart and to move up the chart,
yeah,
like how
yeah,
much your subconscious believes it. Yeah, amen.
yeah,
Mhm.
yeah.
Liz, I have a question on that actually,
Uh-huh. And I
as
have
you're
an
a
answer.
guru.
Oh, no. Yes.
Um, Doing it in a mirror rather than just
Yes.
saying it out loud. What's the
Yes.
difference?
Oh, the difference is, for a lot of people don't have a high enough self-concept, so they can't even look at themselves in the mirror. I was one of those. So to have them work in the shadows or in a silhouette until they can actually see themselves. So number one, it really helps your self-concept. And as your awareness and confidence rises, you reflect in your outer world a better world of a reality that is more true to your original source being. All right. And doing it in the mirror, you're really talking to yourself. It's just much more impactful. I don't do it too often, but every time I walk by a mirror, I whisper to myself, how awesome am I? Look at you. Look at you. I mean, someone's got to say it. I mean, it sounds silly, but
I'd
it,
say it to you all day long.
yeah, you're sweet. I go, now, how awesome are you? I'm going to have the best day. I'm the luckiest person ever. Reality's rigged in my favor. Everything works out for me. Everything's always
Mhm.
for me. Oh, preach it. But
I love that, Liz. Do you mind if I use that in future?
you can steal it. I'll get you a copy of my book somehow. And I have a
Oh,
whole series of
fantastic.
affirmations in the back that
Oh,
I've taken from
fantastic.
Neville and so forth, and I'll get you. But one of my favorites is well, I always have the best day ever. Realities. How do I say it? I'll just repeat it one more time. Um, uh, Everything always works out for me. Everything works out in my
Mhm.
favor. Reality's rigged in my favor. Those kinds of
Yeah,
things. And
yeah,
all the things anybody out there can research affirmations from any of 1,000 affirmation books. Like Louise Hay is a famous one, and
Mhm.
you can take, and all over YouTube. They're all over YouTube. There's even ask formations, which I find super empowering. I call them ask formations, which are um I wonder what kind of wonderful day am I going to have? How is it that I'm a
Yeah,
millionaire? How is it
yeah.
that I'm so healed and whole? How is it that I'm in the relationship of my dreams? And then your
You know,
subconscious goes and finds the answer. Okay, I'll hush.
do you know though, for someone like me, who is a lot like every other Brit, who cringes at being so positive and nice to yourself. Okay, I've
Yeah,
literally had to learn from the Americans. I have to speak to Kelly and Liz every day and try and repeat the way they speak, and then also that they mean it. So when they say good morning, they mean it. And so yeah,
You are
no,
a
it's true.
go-getter. Hmm.
So yeah, we have to learn, especially in countries like Britain, to be
There's a fine
way
line between where sarcasm is funny and haha to where it's dark and just
Yes.
detrimental.
and
Yes,
yeah, and self defeating for sure.
I think John could agree with me that although he does live in a friendly place like up north, but
it
if
is
you
more
walked
friendly, yeah, but I do agree with you, yes.
if you walked around here or London and you like were walking across the street and you were like good morning, everyone would think you were the town nutter. So you
Yes,
just
and
don't do it.
that's where
That
saying
has
it
to
quietly to
change.
yourself, saying it quietly to yourself and knowing it and starting off with something more neutral can be helpful in dastardly countries like the UK.
I've even got friends who ask me to be less positive.
Yep,
Mm.
because it makes them so uneasy.
They're sick of my positivity and they want me to say something
Yes,
shit has happened, you know?
and then they're like, "Can you not drag us into the cult you're in?" As soon as you get happy or positive, then you're in a cult immediately.
Well, my
Yeah,
family is particularly dark, really dark and nasty, and love to say snarky comments 100% of the time. And so I just smile and keep to myself and just send them light.
yeah,
And
yeah.
I try to relate enough with them in this world so that I'm not a total nutta. But I feel like it is a challenge, but I keep sometimes my joy. I'll send it quietly, like we've been talking about transmuting and things, and
Mm-hmm.
keep it and not be so smiley, bubbly, which is very hard for me not to do.
Mm-hmm.
Well, oh, well, that's the American brainwashing. But the one of the oh no, it's gone.
I'm
I
Sorry,
gonna
know
it's
the
gone.
feeling. I know
I'm
the
gonna
feeling,
cheerlead
Harry.
you
Yeah.
along. Go ahead, John. Mm-hmm.
I was just saying, I know the feeling. You got something burning to say, and then it's gone.
Oh, that's gonna get me at 3 in the morning. I know it.
I have I have a financial client who just hits me up for financial investing, which I think is crazy and funny. And he keeps coming back, and I say, "Is this helpful?" And he goes, "Oh yes, ma'am." He still calls me ma'am. He was one of my soldiers once. He has been saying financial affirmations for mine, but in some others that he has found for like 8 months now. And now he's in a group and he's investing other people's money. So I'm just saying that coming from I mean, many of us here came from troubled family backgrounds. From my own background, I've
Okay.
become a, I've become a glorious light in a way
I think
because
that was by design.
yes, exactly.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Because of this kind of work, all the subconscious work, all the transmuting, all the visualization. And I agree with our person on Chewy who a little bit that I do think that if you're relating with a person, it is valuable to speak to them if you're able to, but many cannot. They cannot confront, or it's too dangerous, or what have you. So, but I do think it's good to speak to people about how they're treating you, et cetera. I'm talking about boundaries now, but at some level, I agree with Kelly. We were chatting yesterday about how doing that inner transmutation work is in fact more powerful. I can tell you, if I put light around all my snarky family members, we all get along so much better, and I need not say a word.
Mm-hmm.
I think there's a lot of distance also with forgiveness.
Oh yeah.
Absolutely.
Yes.
By
Yes.
forgiveness, I mean not forgiving someone for them, but forgiving them for you. And there's a big difference.
Mm-hmm.
Right.
You
And you
know,
don't have to go back for more abuse or whatever. You don't doesn't mean you have
Yeah.
to
Will
go.
you explain that to those that may not
Yes.
understand this concept because it's a very important piece.
Yeah, Jonathan, go.
oh, I mean, one of the best.
Excuse Liz, she was in the army. Jesus.
I'm a commander, sorry.
Yeah,
Jonathan,
yeah.
send it.
Yeah, I wasn't sure who that was directed to, but thank you. Yeah, I mean, one
That
of the
was
best
sorry.
one of the best examples I have of how powerful this is with my stepfather. And my stepfather and I inherently hated each other. We really did for a very long time. But when I started to work with this and to work with an unconditional forgiveness, I I chose him first because he was the frog that I needed to eat for breakfast, and and I was absolutely blown away that he changed almost, well, overnight in his demeanor and approach to me when I sincerely and unconditionally forgave him and asked for forgiveness for myself. And it was the most tangible, it was the first time I did it, and it was so tangible and so powerful that I mean, I use it all the time now, and I teach it all the time to my students. But one of the most challenging elements of attempting to get someone to understand the power of it is when they really don't want to let go of that hatred, or that they can't see themselves losing that hatred, which is why I say it's important that they understand that they're not forgiving the person for the person. They're forgiving the person for themselves, because at the end of the day, we are all connected, intimately connected. We are all one. So by changing the relationship that you have in your mind with a person can change the relationship that you have with them completely.
Well, I have an opinion on that also. Oh my God, no, don't leave. No, stay there.
He's talking to you,
Oh, yes. Yeah, I was talking to myself. Yes, it was people I've noticed, and this is myself included, which is why I noticed. You can become addicted to being depressed or anxious or in
Yeah,
drama or
yeah,
negative,
yeah,
and it's comforting to stay depressed and anxious because it's what you know and it's
yeah.
familiar. And that is what stopped me helping myself for years, because I just go straight back to what was familiar and comfortable for me, which was being anxious and depressed. So that's a
Agreed.
really big, big habit we need to help people get out of. I'm still doing it, okay, because I still sometimes think, let me just go and sit in the bathroom and cry to myself because that's what I know. But
Yes,
no, I've spent
exactly.
too much time with the Americans now, so I can't because they're all happy and positive and
Uh,
Not all of
yeah,
us.
I know. It's like I work with that. It
Yeah,
takes a
and
lot of what I do.
yes, because neurons that fire together wire together. This is out of the work of Bruce Lipton and Dispenza and all the rest that Jonathan mentioned.
Mm-hmm.
That our neurons, it's actually our neurobiology and hormones that force
Mm-hmm.
us into this addiction. It becomes
yes.
a chemical, and so that's why it does take that intentional work to begin to be positive and move out of depression and move out of the labels and things like that.
Mm-hmm.
Well, I
Exactly.
was
It's why
definitely
a
addicted.
hypochondriac is always ill.
Yes,
Right. Right.
because that's where they're comfortable. They want
Yeah,
to go to hospital. They want to ring the doctor. They want their medicine.
Mhm. Back to
But
forgiveness. Yeah, I
yeah.
think back to forgiveness. I think a lot of people I work with are not ready yet. And so we work with funny affirmations like maybe someday perhaps I'll begin thinking about maybe forgiving them. And it's a gentle movement toward that to when they're ready, as well as explaining what you were saying, Jonathan and Kelly, about it's not for them, it's for you. And you don't have to go back for more of the nonsense. It's for you to move forward clear and whole. And I say that healing is like you guys say, it's a little bit of something every day. It's always something. We always have new things drop in to work on.
Well,
that's really good
I could
advice.
ask
Thank
you.
you.
I could ask you three elderly people if you have any good opinions on
Yeah.
how would you how would you explain or teach this to a child like from your maybe 8, 9 years old onwards from when they start really understanding what methods would you use with a child to get them to stop the habit before it starts or to get them into a good habit of being positive about themselves because the school life and social life is so pressured now. It's just got worse and worse and worse, and then their brains must be going full pelt all day every day. So how would you approach kids with this?
Can I jump in first? Because I'm a talker, I
Yeah.
know. The first thing is, I would say, as a parent, more is caught than taught. So living that out and explaining your story. So I would explain to my kids, yes, I'm forgiving that person because such and such, and I would evidence it out and I would act it out. Like when during my divorce, I was a pretty decent person. That gets into the deep structure, and the kids will see it as adults. So sometimes they end up behaving that way naturally. And I'll let you guys share your other ideas.
Yeah, I think so too. I mean, I've worked with, I get a lot of friends who say, "Can I work with their kids?" And I say, "Well, I'm not. I'm not officially qualified." And they're like, "Well, yeah, we want you to do it anyway."
I
What I
think the time for being qualified is out the window because the people who are already working,
It's
not working.
bullshit. Yeah.
Yes.
yeah. So, well, I guess they get that too. They're from similar community usually. So, you know, what I tend to do is I combine sort of counseling or mentoring with a bit of Reiki work. So I make sure they're open to me working with them energetically in an energy healing sense. And what I'll do is I'll actually go in to their mind and remove the negative memories for them. And I find, and I think like you were saying, Liz, it's not an immediate thing, but the more you reprogram and the more you um, positively affirm, then the closer you get to that realization or to that aha moment. And I've had some really very positive feedback from the guys I've worked with.
Hmm.
Oh, that's good.
I think humor, adding humor, especially with children,
Yeah,
too.
yeah, absolutely, yeah,
What you and Liz both have just said, absolutely. For me, it's like I want to express joy because I've been around really bright children most of my adult life. My friends and other people have just had the most amazing children, and the way that I've been able to get through them is just being silly because in person I'm very very silly and animated anyway, and I tend to just want to come across like that, and they remember these things too. And my godfather always said to me after he said something so wise, he said, "You'll remember this someday." He just followed it with that. And so if you could just kind of be, silly with your children, yet also reiterate that it's like you're going to remember this, So come back to these times because for for bits of wisdom, and just know that you've just got to amp your vibration up any way you can. Listen to your favorite songs, dance around, be silly, And I think children totally relate to that. And you're already silly anyway, Anna. So
That's
No.
because I've not
I'm
grown up.
down.
But
I think.
actually,
Sorry, go
sorry, John.
ahead.
But I was just going to say, not to brag, I know everybody says their children are great, but I have a 15-year-old and we have no trouble with her whatsoever. We don't have to shout at her. We don't have to tell her off for anything because if you spend years before they're a teenager talking about, everyone talks about bad teenagers. Oh, teenagers are awful. They're horrible. Like the terrible twos. They do the same then, and the threes. If you tell a child for the first 13 years of their life, oh, you're going to be a horrible teenager. Oh, teenagers are awful. Then they'll be most likely think, well, this is the time for me to act
Yeah,
out.
yeah,
So,
yeah, absolutely, yeah.
and the non-shouting method, I've got a 15-year-old, like I just said, it's worked out for me. Okay, we have no problems with her whatsoever. Like, I don't have a problem with either of really, but I just refuse to shout and don't keep on repeating the negative stereotypes that people have out there for kids because it just tells them, oh, you're going to be an awful teenager. And then they're like, well, I might as well.
Yes. I think that what we're all saying too is it's who we are as parents and godparents and uncles, etc. Um,
Mhm.
as we do our own healing and send out light to the children, they will pick it up. They'll pick it up eventually. Absolutely.
I think there's also a lot of distance in empathy and honesty. I often find I can relate very much to the young people I work with because I'm so-called spectral myself, and they're usually
Mhm.
children in that position. I find if I can be honest and humor with them and and be honest about myself and my previous bad behavior or bad thoughts or whatever, then I tend to build a level of trust that then enables them to open up and open up even not just to me but to themselves.
Mm-hmm.
You know,
Authenticity. Mm-hmm. Children on the spectrum know when people are being authentic.
absolutely, yeah.
Mm.
Yeah, I
Yeah,
feel like
Actually,
yeah, go ahead, everybody.
no, I was just going to say my 15-year-old was diagnosed autistic when she was 4 years old.
wow.
Yeah, it was very young, actually,
Yes,
for normal.
and she's quite talented too. Yeah, she's
Yes, musically and
learning
creatively.
guitar. Mm-hmm.
Yes, she picked that up immediately. I don't.
That's great. Mm-hmm.
Nobody wants to hear me playing guitar. I'm not musically gifted.
I think you're right. If we don't yell at our children or say mean things to them, at least start there.
Hmm. But like whoever just said it earlier, you the most of it is doing by example because that's what their kids learn all of their behavior from watching and observing. And
Yeah,
when a kid turns out
Absolutely.
really, really, really bad, you have to take some blame in that because they picked up on some things of yours. So
Mm-hmm. And I think that don't you feel too that with the way the energy is changing on the planet as we move into this golden age of enlightenment, I guess you could say, there's so many different terms for it, new earth and everything, but these new vibrations that are coming forth are going to really help us with communication with everybody, but I think children are especially sensitive to these kind of things, and whether they're on the spectrum or not, um, they certainly know that everything's changing very, very quickly, and there's just so much to that's been out there for so long to bring them down. But with those tides changing, I just see this whole just communication with everybody. I feel like it's going to lighten up as we change. I want to wrap back around to this because I'm still trying to wrap my head around a few things Kim said with that June 19th sit rep, where she talks about energy going from alternative current to direct current to source. So, and that's not only going to influence and is already influencing the financial system, but it's going to affect how we communicate with not only ourselves but each other. Because if you remove,
we can.
go ahead,
Sorry,
go
I
ahead.
just wanted to get it out before I forget it, and then you can carry on. If
Okay.
we can actually probably ask Paige to ask Kim if she can ever elaborate on that one day on one of the sit reps.
Mm-hmm.
Just an idea I'm throwing out there, but sorry, carry on.
Yeah, and yeah. So I want to ask John, though, as somebody who's skilled in energy and in the science of frequency and energy as well. What How do you feel that may change, or do you feel it would change anything at all about magnetism and the way? Because we've been in this world of polarity, so the polarity is being lifted. I wonder what that's going to do for magnetism and attraction and all of these different things if we're going direct to source. Um, do you have any thoughts about that? Because it's one of those things that I contemplate from time to time, and I'm just like, wow, this is so cool. But yet at the same time, what does it mean for other people who may not be awake yet? You know, I don't know.
No, really good question, and I think from my perspective, I don't personally think that it will change the laws, albeit quantum laws
Mm-hmm.
surrounding magnetism or how the universe in general at every level functions.
Sure.
But as you know, it's an unknown. We've never been there before,
Mm-hmm.
and we're not absolutely 100% what to expect. But personally, I don't anticipate that it will change the fundamental laws of how the universe works.
Right, right, right. But but just having more direct access to clean energy and positivity, I feel like, the mental health issues will be able to eventually be dealt with in such a way that it doesn't have, it's non-invasive, because I came in a time where mental health was, it was shoved down my throat, and violently, and I experienced very, very negative things within mental health structures, including family counseling kind of stuff, which led to two narcissistic parents. One was a step parent, and then being basically incarcerated and tortured because I was a rebel in the sense that I didn't like being talked. I didn't like the situations I was in where people were, telling me I wasn't well and then sending me away when obviously they're projecting their stuff on me. And I'm just kind of like, you know what? It's like these people have no idea how to communicate to people to get them well. Why are you taking children and putting them in these really harsher situations, and then saying, "Well, this is good for their mental health." It's not at all, Those things have to change. They're going to change. I feel that.
Of course they will, and there'll be more methods to heal people rather than just here, go and see a counselor.
From what I understand, the major change is the removal of the reptilian or the AI, which was feeding the reptilian cortex, which means that although we will still have the traumas and memories residual, we will no longer be being fed any of the negative information. So what it means is that I mean, particularly I've seen it in the work that I've done. You can remove the core traumas or memories associated with traumas from the blueprint, but all the time new ones are coming in. So for me, it means that once you've cleaned someone, once you've helped someone to remove those core negative blockages or memories, then the only ones which will come in are from their own environment themselves, which they are entirely in control of. So there'll be no more AI influence, which makes it an uphill battle all the time, if you know what I mean.
Yes, that's huge. Absolutely. It's incredible to contemplate just how an AI system could be part of who we were, a negative AI system. And it was so dark and diabolical that it wasn't going to allow us to get very far, and no matter how hard we tried, and now that's being alleviated, we're going to replace it. We have to replace it with these healthy habits that we're all speaking about today, that are in your book and that are in Liz's book, and
I'll write a book too.
Yeah, I've got that booklet. I've just got a little booklet I need to get out, and it's just but anyway, it's been the busy time of year here. Oh, and but yeah, I'm finding that even though I have all these stresses, things that are lightening up, that I could just see on a micro level where I'm kind of like, oh yeah, I'm used to that. So I know exactly what you're talking about, Anna, when you're, speaking about that English tension and such. It's like it's something that's been inside of me for a long time, and I'm sarcastic as all hell. It's like, and that's one of the ways that I get by in life, is use my sarcasm and just even if it's not to anybody else, it's going on in my head, and
but humor heals. Okay, it really does.
Yes, it does. And but again, there's that dark line where it's just kind of like it can give you that chip on the shoulder just enough too that you're off balance, and then all of a sudden it's like, what I mean.
Well, Liz is always telling me off, isn't she? Because I'm so very sarcastic about myself, and she ignores it and then makes me say something nicer.
I love when our friends can just like interrupt us and say, "Just cut it out,"
Well, lovely folks, we are closing in on an hour. And
Yeah,
it gets copacetic with everybody unless anyone has more questions. I would just like to invite Jonathan, if you have any final comments.
Well, actually, Liz, before I forget,
Yes,
I have
please.
to jump in now because my memory is suffering a little recently.
This is how we have to put up with Anna, everybody.
I either get it out while it's there or it's gone. So
Or it comes out 3 weeks later.
Yes. I was going to ask John where people could find out more about his book and the things he's been
yes,
writing
yes,
about,
of course.
and his website.
Yeah, thank you so much. Yeah, the best resource is the website, which will give you an idea of whether it's for you or not, because it's not for everyone, and I appreciate that. But if you were to go to www. all one word, atheoryofeverything.co.uk. So that's atheoryofeverything.co.uk. You'll be able to have a look and see what it's all about. I've also got a lot of the videos that I've produced recently, including a seminar which I presented end of last year, which is quite a good in-depth look into chapter 6 in my book, which I was so excited about and described earlier. So thank you.
Okay, we can write that down on Chewy when we post it as well.
Well, yeah, and I was going to say, like on the podcast too, there's an introduction, and I'll put it there once it's uploaded to the Restoration Conversations podcast. And yeah, it's been wonderful having you spend so much time with us here, Jonathan. I really appreciate your book, and I appreciate getting to know you as a friend. And
we'll have to have him back.
Yeah, absolutely. I consider him a mentor, and I just want to say from the heart too. It's like one of those things. I really felt this nurturing father aspect of you. The first time that you spoke with us in the short interview with Chewy, and I just thought, this person has, Kim talks about the left and the right brain working together and such, and I felt like you're such a I could feel the holistic nurturer that you are, and that's what really I think stood out to me to want to get to know you more and to share these conversations with everybody, because I feel like it's really helped me a lot, and with what I'm going through, it's like each day that goes by as a caregiver, when somebody is closer and closer, to leaving the planet and such, especially when it's a parent. I'm not lost a parent before, and it's just been really good to have that nurturing father energy that you offer. So I just want to thank you from my heart to yours. So I appreciate you very much.
Thank you, Kelly. That means a lot. I appreciate it.
And that's from all of us. So Jonathan, any final comments you want to share with the people?
Well, I'm a bit choked now, but anyway, what I'd love to say is I'd love to get a hold of a copy of your books too, and I look forward to working with Kelly in producing his book.
Thank you.
That's it. I'm writing a book. I am writing a book.
You have to.
I've got a book.
How a snarky Brit turned kind. Yeah.
How to learn to say good morning and mean it.
I have a title for you, but I might use it if you don't get to it first. It's Healing the Heathen Within. I've always had that. Well, that was part of my whole thing. Talk about a chip on your shoulder. I was always in a war zone in my head before, and I would just always have these. And so I had to turn it all around with comedy, because I got a little bit too serious. I was just like constantly at war. It was like anybody would say anything to me, and I'd be like, "What?"
Well, I married an Orthodox Jew. I've been called a heathen for the last 20 years.
I was a liberal Christian in the army. I was called a heathen, as if I was opening the gates to hell for the soldiers. So, well, has everyone agreed that we can end this fine podcast?
Yes, I want to thank
you so
everybody
much
for tuning in, though, and listening to us.
Yes.
Mm-hmm.
Yes.
It's been
well, everyone.
Thank you to John.
Thank you, John, for putting up with us and our silliness, and look forward to our next podcast, and look forward to hearing from you again, Jonathan.
I look forward to it tremendously myself. Thank you so much.
Awesome.
Take care.
Good
I'm
to
going
have
to turn
you.
off the recording, but we can stay on. Take care, everybody.
Thank
Bye,
you.
everybody.
Bye.
Thank
Bye.
you.